let's move on then. Just a year, in fact. We're making our jumps much smaller as we go on. To Peter and the Wolf. I have a strange origin story for Peter and the Wolf. Peter and the Wolf first came to my attention when it was given away free by Apple in one of their iTunes 12 Days of Christmas promotions. Though, as it was given away 4 days after they gave away the James Corden vehicle Lesbian Vampire Killers, you can imagine I wasn't immediately hopeful. This is the only short we're covering on this episode, but I wanted to include it because, despite its unfortunate proximity in my mind to that other film, I did watch it and I found it particularly striking. And also because it has no dialogue and is instead, as you may have guessed from the name, an interpretation of Sergei Prokofiev's symphonic fairy tale. If you're not familiar with how that goes, Peter is a lonely young boy who lives with his grandfather in the forest, and his only friend is a duck. Against his grandfather's wishes, he leaves the safety of the fenced-in property one day to play in the frozen pond with the duck, another bird, and his grandfather's cat. Then a wolf, of the big bad variety, comes along and gobbles the duck, fulfilling the purpose of both wolves and ducks. Peter feels somewhat differently, of course, what with the duck being his friend, so enlists the help of the bird to capture the wolf, to the amazement of the locals. While this adaptation changes a few details, that's more or less it. But the narrative is not the main focus here. Rather, it is the compelling visuals and the synchronization with Prokofiev's music. And boy are the visuals good. It's one of, if not the best looking stop motion animations I've ever seen, with a level of detail probably only matched by Wes Anderson's Isle of Dogs. The character models are simply fantastic. Identifiably Slavic, with extremely expressive faces and passably human-looking skin, while never quite trying to be a facsimile. For instance, the attention paid to the grandfather's skin and the wrinkles in his neck is astonishing, with similar detail levels seen in the rusty doors of his ladder, amongst other things. Peter and Wolf is just a beautiful thing. And if there's a downside, it's simply that the visuals could be perhaps more tightly tied to the music. It certainly made me very enthusiastic to check out more of the work of Semaphore, the Polish animation studio that produced Peter and the Wolf, of which there is, happily, a lot, and the British director, Susie Templeton, of which there is, sadly, little.
Yes, I share an origin story with you for this. The difference being that although I got it as part of that 12 Days of Christmas extravaganza back in, 45 years ago, I think it was?
2009, so... Yes, 46 years ago.
47 years ago, that was, I hadn't watched it until 2 days ago, and I'm much the lesser person for not having done it. Yeah, it's really great. Won't spend too much time echoing what you said on it to say that, yes, the detail on this is absolutely superb. I mean, everything we've spoken about to this date, the rest of this podcast, they've all been incredibly impressive technical achievements and incredibly detailed stuff. But yeah, this is perhaps a level above it. Just the amount of work that's gone into producing this is just absolutely remarkable, and it's just stunning to watch. Really great stuff. And obviously I knew Peter and the Wolf as a musical piece, but I didn't really understand until I did a bit of digging about this, the way that it would have been shown, the way that it kind of would have been narrated as a kind of fairy tale to an audience with the music in the background kind of digging through it and that sort of thing, which I've never sort of seen or experienced, so that would also be kind of interesting. But this film is a very enjoyable alternative for that, and the visuals of this, of course, are absolutely remarkable, and the music is obviously classic. That's why it's called classical, right?
That's how.
Yeah, that's how it works. So that kind of stuff just marries really well. It's a great kind of recontextualization of an art form into the kind of film era, and yes, just really quite a tremendous piece of work, and I enjoyed it immensely. Not much more to say about it than that, but yes, as with everything else, definitely recommended and something you should carve out half an hour to see. Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, one of those films that won an Oscar that was absolutely deserved. Animated short tends to be one of those ones that actually goes to the worthwhile stuff.
Yeah.
Weirdly. Yeah, I was a bit like you, Scott. I was kind of under the impression that I've been aware of Peter and the Wolf for most of my life, I think.
Yeah.
And I always thought that the way the music played to tell the story was a bit more like, say, like Calls to the Planets, where like to give us like an idea of how a planet is meant to feel. It's how it's interpreted, and like
it's a vague suggestion rather than an actual story.
Yeah, or like Camille Saint-Saëns' The Carnival of Animals, where you can see where they're going, like the different music they use and the instruments and how they played. Like you can understand the idea that they're going for with that. And I hadn't realised until preparing for this actually that the way that, as well as like being a way to teach children about musical instruments and stuff, was that actually it was meant to be done with a narration. So they just basically switched the visuals for a narrator here. And it's really effective.
Yeah, beautifully detailed and a beautiful film. Yeah, well worth looking at.
Absolutely.